to hold off on questions for David. Because we could move along in our panel. I think we've talked so far this morning about the onboard experience and about the in-airport experience. And I think part of improving customer access, customer experience is the one area where we really need to look at also is at the distribution level, because the whole airline experience process does not begin the moment you walk in the door of the terminal. It begins the moment you look on the website, the moment you think about your flight or where you're going to travel to. And with that, and trying to improve the entire life experience of the customer, from the moment of first contact right up till the baggage is delivered and they leave the airport, we want to look at a new initiative called NDC. And I'm sure we'll hear more about NDC from our panels, but NDC is backed by IATA. And the first person I'd like to invite up to the stage to join David is Yannick Hoyles from IATA, who's director of NDC. Yannick, please have a seat. Yannick spent many, many years at BA, and he joined IATA at the same time Tony Tyler started. And as those of you know, in the LCC world, IATA used to be, as I say, a four-letter word. And nowadays, IATA is seen as, really pushing the boundaries. It's a very different organization than it was 5-10 years ago, where it kind of was a bit of a slow mover. Now it is really trying to make some changes in the industry that benefit not just its core constituency of full-service carriers, but all carriers, including those that aren't members. So we'll hear a bit more about that today. Joining Yannick will be Jim Davidson. Jim is familiar. He's the CEO of Farelogix, a company that's familiar to, I'm sure, many of you as an innovator in this industry. Jim has always been a vocal and active speaker at these events and has very healthy and strong opinions that get the industry moving. And the last person we want to invite up is Ravi. Ravi, I won't even try to get your last name, Simon, but Ravi, please. Ravi's the CIO of Aer Lingus, and he used to be with Virgin America, another Virgin alum. Ravi, after 20 years in the Bay Area, picked up his family and moved to sunny Ireland, and is really working on a lot of changes at Aer Lingus. So we'll sit down and speak with this panel about NDC and what it all means. And Yannick, I think, if you don't mind, not everybody here really knows NDC or what even it stands for, what it really means at a practical level, in case you're not an IT buff. And so please tell us a bit more about the IATA initiative.
Yeah, thanks, David. NDC, I was at an Irish travel trade event, I think sometime last year. And when I asked them what NDC stood for, the response I got was the National Dairy Council. Right? So I think they had a really good night the evening before. But it's quite a well-known acronym. I guess the way it's been perceived has changed quite significantly over the last 10 or 12 months. So NDC is a new distribution capability backed by IATA. In effect, that means backed by the IATA Airlines, because we do what our members ask us to do. So what is NDC? I'll give you a sort of 4-minute spiel on NDC, and if you want to know more, then come and join the workshop this afternoon. NDC, it's all about providing the airlines with the same capability as they have on their websites to distribute through the travel agent channel. Yeah, so the airlines today can do, I would say, at least 3 things on their websites really, really well. They can differentiate their product, describe it, whether it's rich content or details, the features of their product, which is very difficult to do on the indirect channel through travel agents. On their websites, the airlines are very good at speed to market with new products, whether it's a preferred seat or a new cabin, whether it's baggage. On their websites, they can push out this new product to market real fast. Through the indirect channel, it takes quite a long time. Sometimes it's very difficult. And finally, on their websites, airlines can personalize offers. If the customer chooses to identify themselves through their frequent flyer number, then maybe they'll get a special offer, maybe they won't. And to do this through the indirect channel is quite problematic in the shopping process. So NDC is about giving the airlines the capability to do these 3 things, as examples, through the indirect channel as well. So in effect, the business case for NDC, very high level, is about incremental opportunities, incremental revenue. That's what it's about. Now, what is it? NDC, this is really important, it's a standard. It's not a system, it's not a database, it's not a piece of software, it's a standard for communication of data between airlines and travel agents. using modern technology, XML-based. That's what it is. And of course, if in between it makes sense to have an intermediary, such as what we'd call an aggregator, a GDS of today's world, then it can cater for that. Now, one of the key features of NDC also means that in order to be able to replicate what they do on their website through the indirect channel, it means that the airline, when pushing out through the indirect channel, just like on its direct channel, it controls the offer. In other words, in an NDC environment, the standard enables the airline to take control of the offer and push out a priced offer through the indirect channel like it does on its direct channel today. And whether it's constructed through ATPCO, whether it's dynamic pricing offer, that's up to the airline. It's out of the scope of NDC. And the last point I'd like to make about NDC is that it's more than just shopping. In the Resolution 787 that kind of describes NDC, it's also about building a set of standards that are not only enable airlines to do shopping using modern technology, but because the airline now has control of the offer through the indirect channel as well, we're building a set of schema standards that would enable the airlines, if they choose to do so, not only to do shopping, but also to do the booking, ticketing, payment, and settle to BSP if they choose. So there's a shopping component and an end-to-end component. So none of this is mandatory. It's completely up to the airlines to choose whether they want to implement it all or parts of it. And finally, the last point is NDC is not a GDS bypass. Direct Connect exists today. It'll exist tomorrow. As I said at the beginning, we're convinced, we believe that there's a need for an aggregator that may sit between the airline and the travel agent. Some people are very well placed to carry out that role are today's GDSs, of course. They've got the skills, capability, but also because NDC, it's using modern technology, internet technology, and because it's a standard, it potentially makes the market much more accessible to other players as well, and therefore to enhance competition. So at the end of the day, the goal of NDC, it's, look, at the end of the chain, it's to provide the customers with a more consistent shopping experience, a richer shopping experience, and to stimulate a bit more competition as well. But the strategy of how you use NDC, of course, comes up to the airline. The airline decides what they want to do with it, how they want to do it. Yeah, it's just an enabler to their strategy. So that was an overview. And if you want to hear more, join us this afternoon.
Thank you, Yannick. Robbie, Aer Lingus is a big supporter of the NDC initiative and seems to be very much on the kind of the leading edge of what's going on in NDC. I mean, you guys have been very cautious. You 15 years, you haven't really made the big move in terms of distribution systems. You kind of held back. Why now? What's happening in Aer Lingus, and why do you believe this is, shall we say, part of a turning point?
So 17% of all our traffic comes from distribution channels. That 17% is also our highest yielding traffic, North America to Ireland. As you folks may well know, Ireland is a fantastic tourist destination, mostly for North Americans because of the cultural connections and the roots. So the big problem, however, for those distribution channels is that we cannot promote our ancillary products outside our core reservation system. Those products like food, car rentals, special deals for hotels, etc., are available on our website. But if you are a tourist flying into Ireland from the United States, you most likely will go to a travel agent to get a full package deal. We want to be there. We want to be at the travel agent's desktop so they can actually get the best deal for their customers, and we can put all our products on the retail shelf. We consider the travel agent, just like the website, a retail store shelf, and we want all our products and all the various combinations thereof to be available. So it's very, very important to us. There's frankly speaking, there's a ton of money sitting on the table that we're not looking at. And just because we're low cost doesn't mean we're non-profits. We do make a profit. We're the third most profitable airline in Europe. And we would like to see that grow. And this is one area where NDC, the concept and the platform and the standard will help Aer Lingus push its products out on various channels out there. Now, as Yannick said, there is always a need for aggregators, so I have no issue with distribution. 99% of my traffic and the sales in Ireland come from our website. But again, like I said, the vast majority of our yield, the actual money and the margins we make, comes from the distribution channel. So we need to respect that that channel, and we need to make sure that we are presenting all our products there. That's why Aer Lingus is so interested and so keen. And so you folks know we're piloting two large areas. One would be allowing shopping, so exchanging APIs, and the other would be allowing the shopping of all our ancillaries, so bookings and all the ancillaries over the NDC platform. And we hope to have something to show the world in 2015.
Okay. Jim, you guys were involved in open access before. Didn't quite get to where you think this is going. What's new here? What's the difference? Is this common standard the better way to go?
Well, again, I actually think we, as an industry, finally did get where we're going. One of the things, and I love about the earlier presentations, is we are spending tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars on aircraft reconfigurations and amenities and services, and our industry is the most secretive industry in the world. We never tell anybody about the great things that we have. And what we tell people is we tell them our fare and we tell them when we fly. And unfortunately, what I saw today is people are willing to spend money either to have something that I don't deserve or qualify for. And so we have to tell them that. So I think the whole concept around NDC and frankly, whether it's NDC or some other acronym, is the ability to push information out to your respective customers so they can make educated choices, which already have shown result in higher dollars. The numbers, this isn't a fairy tale, this isn't a hope or a wish. The numbers that IdeaWorks puts out are, I mean, the 2014 numbers are $57 billion were generated in ancillaries. Half of that what are called true ancillaries, and as low-cost carriers, you know what those are. Those are things you're selling on board. Those are things outside of bags and change fees. Those are customer-selected items. Those are things that you don't require a customer to purchase. So again, this is what NDC is going to do. So whether it's open access, NDC, we're finally, I think, starting to turn the corner where as an airline, we're going to tell people what we have, and that's really exciting.
Okay. David,
by the way, I just sent David my heartbeat. Let's see if he picks it up.
Okay, no, it's like David, you're not. I think in speaking to you before, you're not 100% convinced this is all going to change the world overnight. Tell us where Virgin Atlantic's at on what's their position on NDC and how to develop distribution.
Yeah, and let me be clear about that. I'm actually a firm believer in what NDC is trying to achieve. But I'm a newcomer to the airline industry. I've only been working at Virgin Atlantic for 2.5, 3 years. And what I've found as I've gone into the industry is this huge inertia. And we've just gone through a process, I'm not going to say here who, but we're going through a final selection process for a new PSS, a new reservation system. And one of the key questions we were asking was, because I do believe it's a necessary change in the industry, is about NDC. And what was incredibly sad was that the reservation systems who have to be enabled for NDC to work, one of them was gave a very enthusiastic response, but no product. One talked about where it was on the roadmap, and two, who will remain nameless but are attached to GDSs, one said, we're not doing anything. And the other one said, well, we might get to it in time, but we don't have any pull from our airlines, so of course we're not going to do anything. And it's this incredible problem, because an airline like us, we're not a big airline. You know, the money that needs to be invested to create an interface between us and all of the agencies and third parties out there through NDC, I can't do it alone. I have to have someone help me deliver that, and presumably it's only going to work if it's a community of airlines, therefore your reservation system that is going to help enable at least a fair portion of that. There will always be unique things that we have to build into it because we have product that's going to be unique. And so I would love it if we can get there, because I hate the stranglehold and inertia that this industry is in. But I am deathly worried that it's not going to get there.
You guys, does David have a point? I mean, I think there is this community, I can't move before somebody else moves, you know, or there won't, you know, I'm going to build this thing, but no one's going to be on the other side of the equation. How are we going to make this move forward? Yannick?
Well, I'll just kick off on that because if you go back last year, NDC, anyone who had a conference, if they wanted a bit of entertainment, would have had an NDC panel. They'd have put me on the panel, a GDS and an airline, and wow, you'd have had a great time. Things have changed a lot. So things have improved a lot since about 12 months ago. And I think the good news is that at least the acronym's been recognized and considered, and you're getting a reply. So things have moved on. I think different partners are at different stages, but there's certainly been a lot of progress. The goal of a standard, it's just to make things more transparent and more competitive. Part of, I think, the reason we are where we are today is that it's very complicated, all this stuff. I don't understand a lot of it, or most of it, I would say. But it's all, the more proprietary standards as such, the more you're glued and stuck, and it's difficult to go and look elsewhere. The whole point of NDC, because NDC is not reinventing the wheel. Open access existed, the OTA standards scheme has existed, but it's about making an industry standard. Industry standard means it's more transparent, and in effect, it's much easier to plug and play. So as a customer, you got more choice. Say, if there's something better somewhere else, it's easy to move around. So that will certainly help. I think also, to be fair, because am I out to kind of nice and neutral? To be fair with some of these IT providers, things are moving pretty fast. And they've been doing a great job in the world of Edifact, although they're doing a bit of XML as well for the last 30 years. They can't change overnight, but they're starting to adapt. The schemas are just coming out. We'll have Shopping 1.1 out on 26 September as a candidate release. So it's happening as we speak. It's live as we speak. But on the other hand, a question I'd have for my two other colleagues here is, to what extent is a PSS not just a commodity? I mean, how dependent is an airline on the actual PSS? And for NDC, for example, to what extent could you either have it built as part of the PSS, or could you have some form of adapter that plugs into a PSS?
Right. Very pertinent question for Aer Lingus. So our PSS is as old as I am. It's about 47 years, a little bit older than that. But the beauty is it's our PSS. So our cost of production is incredibly low. So for all you folks there in low cost, if you're paying anything more than 42 cents a PB, talk to me. I'll host you. So the thing about the flexibility that your own PSS brings you is what Aer Lingus enjoys today. And there are a few of our compatriots out there, like Air New Zealand. There's Emirates. So there are very few of us out there. But I completely agree with David from Virgin Atlantic. The good news, David, is that these two providers, and I'll say them, Amadeus and Sabre, they're out there. They will continue to disappoint, which is good because it's very predictable. So you can work around that, which is why we work with folks like Farelogix, Datalex, maybe there's OpenJaw out there, who we hope will forge forward in this direction, will build the adapters that we need to bridge the old with the new. Not everybody, and Yannick is right, not everybody can move at the pace which we expect. We saw this fantastic presentation from Priestman Good about this beautiful spaceship out there. Now, we're still here on planet Earth, right? So we don't go that high up. And I think what we need to understand is we have to work with the pace of certain aspects of the industry. And those would be the traditional IT providers. But we do have companies like Farelogix, Datalex, OpenJaw, other companies that are providing the links between the old and the new. And I think as airlines, it's our job to ensure that we properly exploit those links and those bridges to the benefit of our customers and, of course, our bottom line.
Yeah, I think just my comment on that, I think there's two approaches as NDC starts to evolve in terms of delivery. And I think there's the traditional approaches, which I think is looking to your PSS as all-inclusive. Pretty much how we buy an all-inclusive tour versus we put one together. And then there's, so I think the PSS will be a provider of some kind of basic NDC capabilities. That's generally not in their wheelhouse. So I think there's a kind of a learning process that has to go through. And the other is there's going to be a number of independent companies, ours, others that Ravi's mentioned, that are going to look at a PSS as a connect point. And I think that is really an independent connect point. I mean, from a Farelogic's point of view, really don't care what PSS you have. We connect into 9 of them. Under the covers, they're pretty much all the same. So the ability to have control at the airline level or have control at the PSS level, I think, are questions that airlines are going to come to struggling with over the next couple of years, and it will vary based on how much dependency your airline puts on your PSS today, I believe.
Okay. All right, gentlemen. And then you were saying, a lot of what we're seeing here is the companies here, a lot of them are LCCs. Are they actually, LCCs have already done a lot of these things. They've got access to all, and to these various ancillary streams, and most of their customers are coming through channels that allow them to have this menu selections without having add-on systems. Now, what we've seen, I think NDC probably started in a way from the big airlines trying to get into that market. But now, the reverse seems to be happening. The LCCs are actually having a chance to get in the big airlines market of the corporate travel. This is almost going to break through the barrier to the TMCs. Who's really going to be the first mover here? Who's going to be the beneficiaries? Do you think the big airlines can take advantages and move quick enough, or break that inertia, as you call it? Or are we actually going to see the LCCs kind of reverse this and grab a piece of the big airlines' high-yielding revenue first?
I want that high-yielding revenue. That's all I have to say.
I think Ryanair wants it too.
Yeah, I'll answer that question slightly differently, in that I think the way to get the big airlines to move is for it to be pull. If the travel agencies start demanding, how do I get access to that secondary revenue stream, then the big airlines will throw the money at the problem. Right now, that pull isn't happening. And I don't quite know why, because there is a secondary revenue stream for both the travel agents and for us in the airline industry. It's got to happen.
Yeah, Nick, all the LCCs are, everyone knows that ancillary is making the LCCs pull way ahead in terms of profitability, whether it's Wall Street or the City of London. This is what they're looking at. The big airlines, are they going to be able to make that pull, get that pull from the travel agents to get a piece of that revenue? What do you think?
Well, no, I think it's a really good point. The way we're engaging on NDC, we say it's a collaborative approach because there's a working group of up to 80 people who work on delivering the schema, the standard, and that's airline people, GDS people, other IT providers, and a small number of travel agents. And we also engage at the more senior level with some OTAs, some TMCs, and travel agents, generally speaking. And you're absolutely right. We spent a lot of time. We actually built a demonstrator, which I'll show this afternoon, which is kind of a mock-up of what NDC could look like from a TMC or an OTA point of view. And we built that. We looked at about 5 travel agents in a room last year for 3 days and threw NDC at them with an IT provider. And we said, well, look, if we were to exploit the benefits of NDC in a travel agent interface, what could it look like? And we kind of built that, and we now show that. So we present that to travel agent forums, etc. We also did the same exercise 6 months ago with corporate buyers. Exactly the same. And we built a mock-up of what a corporate booking tool would look like using the benefits of NDC. So we spent a lot of time talking and engaging. Now, I think that until about 6-8 months ago, when sort of 2013, when it was kind of emotions, it was war out there, for lots and lots of reasons. Some of them justified, some of them not. It was very difficult, I think, for the agent community to engage properly when there were many unanswered questions and a lot of confusion and misconceptions. Since then, it's been very, very simple. It's been clarified. I think we've got a very good constructive relationship with the GDSs and IT providers in general. We also now have the approval from the Department of Transport in the US that's reassured many people. So once again, the last sort of 5-6 months, we're starting to see more and more engagement grow slowly. I think it's a bit more difficult for the travel agents and the corporates because you've got to explain it in layman terms. Their first question is great. I mean, their reaction is, it makes sense, guys. Of course I want to have access to more airline information. Of course I want easier access. That can improve my customer servicing. It can improve my productivity to a certain extent. Same for the corporate buyer. With NDC, these ancillaries, all within the framework of their control, it reduces out-of-policy bookings. So it does have sense. So that pull's starting to happen. But then the whole value chain has to work together because their questions are going to be, how much is it going to cost? And how's it going to work? And what impact is it going to have on my back office processes? And as we work with airlines, these are what the pilots do, the small-scale deployments, working with airlines and the IT providers, including the GDSs, how can we push the benefits of these schemas to the actual user interface of travel agents? So it's starting to happen slowly. Just about low-cost carriers. This was led by IATA carriers, but it's completely open to non-IATA carriers. And low cost, you could argue, a low-cost carrier that is about to go into the indirect channel to go for this high yield is in the best position to embrace NDC. Because rather than going for a proprietary schema, you can use a standard that in a few weeks or months, a lot of the IT providers will say, hey, look, I've done this 12 times already. So I can do it in a cost-effective manner, and I can do it very, very swiftly as well. So it speeds up the pace of deployment. So there's some significant benefits there. And anyone, so in the world of API XML capability, it's easy to move. I think actually, you could argue it's a bit more challenging for the legacy carriers, because for them, it means today when it's the intermediary that constructs the offer, they've got to take that back in-house and replicate what they do on their website. And that's a bit more complicated, but then the gain for them is very, very significant, if not critical.
Okay.
If I may add to that, so the one thing that kind of riles me about IATA's statements with NDC is that they keep referring to XML. Now, XML was a standard that was ratified in 1996. Okay? People have been there, done that, right? So we've all moved on. It has become the standard mode of communication. So my request to IATA is, it's not as much about XML that is the point here. It is about a concept of how we can take this forward. EDIFACT, D92B, D93B, D94B are still fantastic standards for the logistics and shipping industries because they just work and work and work. Why change something that works very efficiently? However, in our world, much to Yannick's point, I think IT teams in airlines need to have been doing this already. And the fact is they didn't, and the reason is, I think, is because until maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or even a decade ago, the executives in airlines did not understand the true value of information technology to the airline and what commercial benefits it could bring to the table. Now, when you see the advent of e-commerce and Amazon and everyone else out there who's doing retailing at a fantastic pace, now airlines want to get into the game. So I think it is very, very important to also for airline IT heads to understand that they need to bring in teams internally who can continuously innovate and take this forward. It's not, it's great that IATA has done this for us, but this is what they've given to us. It's literally a huge gift in a silver platter, and it's up to, and really incumbent upon us airlines to make something really good out of it.
All right, thank you. We just have a few minutes left before coffee. Do we have any questions from the audience for our panel here about NDC or about changes that are happening? Okay, Bernie, please.
Good morning, gentlemen. Bernie Baldwin from Low Fare Regional Airlines. Yannick, there was quite consternation in the US from the, I think, Business Travel Coalition about NDC. They put up, I used to get lots of emails saying, we've got to fight this. I couldn't quite get from some of those exactly what they were arguing against. Can you give us a little bit of a brief, how you saw their complaints and how you've overcome them?
Yeah, to be honest, I couldn't quite get it either. This was very US focused. Kevin Mitchell, who it was to be. I don't know who's behind BTC or who was behind BTC at the time. What kind of lobby? Who's there? Who was supporting them? It was so that's 2013. There was lots of misconceptions around NDC. A couple of them. One of them was that in an NDC world, in order to get an offer from an airline, you had to reveal your marital status and the type of car you owned. Right? Now, if you look at that from a pragmatic point of view, to distribute your products and say that before I give you a price, guys, you got to tell me your marital status, the name of your wife. That's commercial suicide. Certainly in itself didn't make much sense. And then we were very, very explicit about it, explaining it in various ways that NDC, of course, caters for anonymous shopping. That's the basis of NDC. It's only if a customer chooses to be identified, like on any website today, whether it's your airline website or whether it's your Amazon or wherever you do shopping, if you choose to be identified, you can. So NDC works on the same principles. And I can't remember some of the other issues. But clearly, that was part of a lot of lobbying that was going on last year. And I think all that has now been, I would say, answered or explained, not only through all the events we've been participating in, all the airlines and some of the partners who've explained how these were all misconceptions, but also the DOT, the way the US Department of Transport, because all this was trying to maybe destabilize NDC. Why? There are lots of reasons why. Last year, people thought NDC was a bit too transformational and challenging. But the DOT approved Resolution 787, which is the overarching definition of NDC on the 6th of August. And the way the DOT described the benefits of NDC was fantastic. In the interest of the consumer, better customer satisfaction, better customer service, more transparency. They couldn't have said it better. So I think that was a thing of the past. We've moved way beyond that now, and we're working in a very, very collaborative way with everybody across the industry.
Just real quick, I think you have to look at it as from a consumer point of view, is we can debate whether it's good or bad, but there's about a billion, little 1.1 billion tickets a year. 50% of those tickets are purchased through a travel agency. If I choose to purchase my travel through a travel agency today, I am disadvantaged at getting at the quality products that these two gentlemen have here. That is uncalled for. It puts a travel agency at a huge disadvantage. And the reality is we're willing to pay for those services as consumers, and I can't today for almost 600 million tickets. Put that in perspective, and I think you'll see a bunch of people running towards the light very early on.
That's great. Well, I think we have to wrap it up at this stage, unfortunately. We're running a bit behind schedule, but I know there's more questions in the audience. I know there's people who want to ask those questions during the break of our panelists. There's so many opportunities you mentioned before about how we're going to tailor the experience at Virgin Atlantic to the customer. If you could tailor the offer, as you mentioned, to people who want to identify themselves, tailor the offer, tailor what the pricing, the revenue management, everything about it to people. The opportunities here seem tremendous. So I think come to the panel, the workshop this afternoon, and the things with Yannick, and learn more about it. But thank you very much to our panelists. Appreciate it. Now we're off.